Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
He's got 100 some charges against him.
How police nabbed the suspect in the theft of a $40,000 piece of art stolen from a West Vancouver gallery.
Obviously, there's some disparity.
It's a really huge gap.
Plus, it's one workday into the new year, and some of Canada's highest paid CEOs have already made more than the average worker's one-year salary. What experts say needs to change. And more than 1,500 bags sitting unclaimed at YVR. What you should do if yours is one of them, and why the airport says it's all the airline's responsibility.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with some breaking news. Former high-profile BC children's advocate Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond is no longer with UBC. The university will not say why she is gone, but Dan Burrett joins us live with more. Dan, what have you learned?
Anita, the university says as of December 16th, Turpel-Lafond is no longer a professor in the Peter A. Allard School of Law. When asked why, a spokesperson says they can't say because of privacy law. Last fall, Turpel-Lafond was the subject of a CBC investigation into her claims of Indigenous ancestry. For decades, she had said she was a Treaty Indian of Cree ancestry. But CBC found no evidence of that. All documentation indicated she was of European descent. CBC also reported she had made inaccurate public claims about her academic accomplishments. From 2018 until mid-2022, she served as the director of UBC's Indian Residential School History and Dialogue Centre. She left that role in June, but remained a professor at UBC's School of Law. In a statement issued to the Globe and Mail in mid-October, the day CBC's story broke, UBC offered public support for Turpel-Lafond, praising her work as the director of the IRS HDC, acknowledging her, quote, deep connections with Indigenous peoples across Canada. The university added she was not hired because of her Indigenous ancestry claims. In the wake of the story, a group called the Indigenous Women's Collective said, quote, we are deeply troubled that First Nations professionals, politicians, and university leaders have been too swift to publicly defend an individual claiming to hold Treaty Indian status and indigeneity when, in fact, there is no verifiable evidence to support that claim. The group called on 11 Canadian universities to revoke the honorary doctorates they had given her. All those institutions say they're taking their request seriously and are examining the matter. CBC asked Turpel-Lafond for comment, but she had not replied by the time of the story's publication. Anita.
Dan Burrett live for us tonight. Thanks, Dan. BC health officials are watching closely as a new, likely more transmissible Omicron subvariant spreads into our province from south of the border. Dr. Bonnie Henry confirms the subvariant XBB 1.5 has been detected in a few BC cases already, but as Zara Premji explains, its emergence comes as many British Columbians find themselves in the grips of COVID fatigue.
This is our life now. COVID's here to stay.
And with that, another subvariant has made its crash landing in BC.
Kind of tired now. Just stop now.
It's called XBB 1.5, or nicknamed the Kraken.
One of the things that has been concerning about it and why it's come to people's attention is because it's spreading quite fast in certain parts of the world.
As of December 31st, the new subvariant accounts for more than 40% of new cases in the U.S. That's according to the Centre for Disease Control and Prevention. And that's up from 0.6% just over a month before. And while BC's top doctor says hospitals are prepared for what might come, some British Columbians say they're tired of talking about variants.
It's almost like it's COVID fatigue. You're starting to get used to it, which is a shame, but it's true.
Dr. Henry says it's dangerous to see this as just another COVID warning and dismiss it, though.
The virus has changed, and this virus has changed, and it's changed quite rapidly, sometimes quite dramatically.
But if the province wants British Columbians to be alert, this advice from a local physician.
I think we need to double down on what we know about how humans receive information, as opposed to coming up with the next greatest message.
She says while there continues to be a struggle to keep the messaging top of mind, it's important to remember.
Just like wearing seatbelts in our car, flossing our teeth. We need to be prepared to protect ourselves.
Dr. Henry says while it's not causing severe illness or spiking hospital rates as of now, the new subvariant is a stark reminder.
And if you haven't got that booster dose, it's not too late. This is a reminder that this virus is still out there trying to make us sick, and those booster doses make a difference too.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Beijing has condemned new COVID-19 testing rules being imposed on travelers from China by the Canadian government. China says the new requirements, which are in effect at several airports, including YVR, are unreasonable, and the country is threatening to take countermeasures. Starting Thursday, air travelers 2 years of age and older who arrive from Canada from China, Hong Kong, or Macau will have to provide evidence of a negative COVID-19 test taken before departure. Here in Vancouver, the wastewater from planes arriving from China will also be tested for the virus. The World Health Organization is asking Beijing to disclose up-to-date data on COVID hospitalizations and deaths. Well, first it was kids, and now it's adults who are seeing a shortage of medication. Pharmacies across BC are seeing a shortage of adult cold and flu medication. According to officials, the lack of supply is due to an increase in demand across the entire country. While they work to restock shelves, retailers are asking customers not to over-purchase so that all caregivers can have access to what they need when they need it. A massive freighter ship is drawing crowds after being docked in Victoria Harbour because of a malfunctioning rudder. GSL Eleni, a Liberian vessel, was en route to North Carolina but faced mechanical issues and wasn't able to maneuver. So it made an emergency stop off Vancouver Island on Sunday, where 6 tugboats escorted the 300-meter-long ship into harbour.
Well, I saw it come in on the 1st and wanted to see if they could really fix it here. I thought they'd take it to a dry dock.
It's gigantic. It's hard. And well, you see only part of it too, so you get lost on a boat like this, I guess.
The vessel is now docked at Ogden Point and will stay there until it is repaired. Canadian Blood Services is asking you to give blood after the recent rough winter weather caused mass cancellations of donations. The snow and ice last month didn't just cause issues with travel and holiday shopping. Many donors were unable to attend their appointments because of icy roads and closed bridges in the Lower Mainland. There are more than 6,200 open appointments to donate blood in BC alone. The agency is also reporting its lowest donor base in the last 10 years. Well, a local art gallery is sharing their relief tonight that tens of thousands of dollars worth of stolen art has been recovered. The thief stole one piece this past Friday, but then returned the very next day to steal even more. Now we're learning more about the suspect, and as Michelle Gassoub reports, he's a prolific offender with a long list of previous offenses.
Vancouver Fine Art Gallery in South Granville devastated and stunned when this $7,000 sculpture was stolen on Saturday.
I've seen him on the camera. I went shooting straight after him. By that time, it literally took him 8 seconds to walk in, lift up the sculpture, and walk right out.
Even more shocking when they realized the same thief had stolen a $30,000 sculpture just the day before.
Came in the next morning, still didn't notice it. And then at 12 o'clock, around 12:01, 12:03, he walked in again and decided two is better than one.
Both incidents captured in security footage. In the first, the man lingers outside and inside the store, sizing up the weight and heft of the gold statue before grabbing it and taking off. In the second, there was no hesitation. The entire theft takes place in a matter of seconds. The gallery phoned 911 and police recognized the suspect as 50-year-old Francis Boyven and headed to his East Vancouver home.
When we got there, he wasn't home, but we waited for him, and shortly within the hour, he showed up still carrying the stolen sculpture that had just been stolen an hour earlier. We were able to arrest him.
A search warrant revealed the second stolen sculpture in Boyven's home. He was well known to police, with 115 previous convictions to his name and crimes dating back to the 90s.
Anytime we're able to get somebody like this, catch them in the act, recover the property, obtain criminal charges on somebody, it's a good thing.
Boyven has now been charged with 2 counts of theft over $5,000. Dror says he'll be relieved to have the pieces back, but was stunned to learn of Boyven's long criminal history.
I found out that he's got 100 some charges against him, that I'm amazed that our system has not been able to put him away forever and ever and ever and throw the book at him.
He says he's now considering more security measures for the gallery, but doesn't want to discourage people from coming in.
Which prevents people from coming in when they see a door locked, they need to buzz. It's not the freedom that we're used to.
A story with a happy ending and 2 works by a local artist soon to be back on display. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
More than 1,500 checked bags are still sitting at YVR waiting to be claimed by their owners. The number is changing, of course, as people arrive and depart, but the airport says the reunification process will take more time. They're asking people to make a claim with their airline, either online or at the airport. Claims must be submitted within 21 days for delayed luggage and 7 days for damaged luggage. After that 21 days is up, the baggage is considered lost and the airlines can be held liable. YVR has set up a temporary area that can store approximately 2,500 bags if needed.
We're hearing stories of people being reunited within, 2 minutes of talking to one of our staff members. It's just a matter of working through all the bags that are here and then helping passengers find them here at the airport. So certainly have your ticket with you, certainly have that little tag that you get when you check your bag, and come and speak to someone here at the airport to find out more.
The airport's baggage customer support team is located at the information counter in domestic arrivals, and for international arrivals, that's on level 1. BC property assessments are showing a 12% rise in home values on average, but the new numbers come with a note of caution. As Mira Baines tells us, experts are actually predicting a drop because of what's happening in the market right now.
While some properties like Lululemon founder Chip Wilson's waterfront Kitsilano home are up $1 million from last year's assessment, values in the Lower Mainland have on average increased anywhere from 5 to 20%.
The Fraser Valley is where you see some of the bigger increases for the Lower Mainland.
The assessments show the market value of a property as of July 1st, 2022. So the higher values across the board reflect market activity during the pandemic recovery.
You're seeing the tail end of all that movement from last year. So, we know that the market, it peaked around March or April of last year.
This is a snapshot of assessments as of July 2022 for single-family homes in the Lower Mainland. In Vancouver, assessed values were up 7%, Surrey up 13%, and the township of Langley up 15%. For condos and townhomes in the Lower Mainland, Vancouver strata properties were up 6% overall, Surrey up 16%, and Abbotsford up 21%. But Morale says the market has been falling since July.
We're starting to look at what our 2024 assessment roll looks like. It's probably going to be mostly negatives across the board. Negative to what degree? That's yet to be seen, but it'll probably be, it'll be all red.
This Abbotsford-based realtor is recommending people get a second opinion because assessed value doesn't necessarily reflect market value. For example, renovations aren't always taken into account.
I do think it hurts because the problem is when people see a number, and then they don't get that number, they feel like they lost that money, although it was never really there. And this is something we struggle with as well, is it's hard because, again, it's really hard to get off that when you've seen a number and that's something that you want.
January 31st is the deadline to appeal assessed value. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
And the new cooling off period intended to protect home buyers takes effect today in BC. It's expected to help protect people from being pressured into high-risk sales. Home buyers will have 3 days after signing their contract to back out of the sale. A rescission fee of 0.25% of the purchase price is added on any cancellation. That works out to $2,500 for a $1 million home purchase. And as some parents continue to deal with long wait lists for expensive daycares, hundreds of $10 a day childcare spaces are expected to open in BC this month. The more than 1,300 new spots will be spread out across dozens of childcare centres. It's part of the Childcare BC program with nearly 1,200,000 affordable spaces open in total. According to the province, the program saves the average family $800 a month for full-time childcare per child. Well, there was a small fire at the Sandbar restaurant on Granville Island earlier today, and that came with a small act of kindness afterwards for firefighters.
When I saw the fire department here, they worked quickly, they minimized the damage, and we have a policy here in the Creek House that we thank people. And I thought 3 dozen donuts would be lovely for them to go back to have a coffee and sit down and relax a little bit after coming down here.
McCann says the fire started in one of the pizza ovens because of creosote buildup. The Sandbar restaurant is still open as firefighters were able to get the blaze out quickly, and they were seen enjoying the donuts kindly provided by McCann. Vancouver police say a local litter bug got a little more than they bargained for. In a tweet, the VPD traffic section writes a passenger was seen littering from what appears to be a Mercedes-Benz G63. Officers pulled them over near Howe and Nelson Street in downtown Vancouver, only to find the driver was impaired with too many passengers in the vehicle. The driver got a prohibition and tickets were issued, with the car being impounded. Okay, some stunning pictures out of Big White Ski Resort to share with you now after snow and ice completely encased one of their chairlifts. Take a look. The mesmerizing photos show the Falcon chairlift completely covered in ice. Big White says it will take 2 to 3 days to completely de-ice the lift, but before you try to get a refund, they say the Falcon chairlift is the only one closed right now, and that it's actually been closed since November anyway because of a lack of snow under the unload area. That is just incredibly beautiful. I know it puts a damper on their ski season, but you can't help but look at those beautiful photos.
I think you're right, Anita. It would be worth the trip out, get a few runs in, and then take some stunning pictures under the blue sky. And Anita, I just happened to check, and they are getting more snow in the forecast this week. Yeah, nice, good, fluffy stuff coming to the interior resort. So that's some good news if you were thinking of heading out. Let me show you the current temperatures across the south coast right now. We've been fairly mild and fairly wet today as well. 3 right now at YVR, 1 out towards Abbotsford and hanging on to a 5 in Nanaimo. We've still got a few rounds of showers to go, even though we're mainly dry across Metro Vancouver. You can see sort of a fresh round of rain tracking across the island. So we're not quite in the clear yet across Metro Vancouver. And in fact, speaking of mountain snow, we might get one more burst of rain and mountain snow sort of pre-dawn hours across the south coast. But then things will clear up. And I like it when we've got the sort of next 3 days lined up in the satellite all ready to go. So that low pressure system up towards Haida Gwaii, that's the one bringing the showers overnight. Wednesday is that break in the clouds, and then Thursday, Friday is the one tracking in from the southwest. But we will get a nice little break tomorrow afternoon. There's that burst. And then as we head into Wednesday afternoon, clearing skies, Anita. So it'll be good to see the sunshine. I was sort of missing it when I saw those clear blue interior shots with the ski lift. So we'll get some.
Okay, good. I won't complain about sunshine, so happy to have it. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, he's the toast of the hockey world, thanks to a dominating performance at this year's World Juniors. After the break, a closer look at North Vancouver's Connor Bedard. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Last year, we sent our reporters out to cover all the stories all over the province. GP Mendoza used a drone to elevate some of the stories he covered. We want to now show you some of his best shots. Canada is off to the semifinals at the World Junior Hockey Championship after a dramatic 4-3 overtime win against Slovakia. As Kate McKenna reports, North Vancouver phenom Connor Bedard played a pivotal role in the victory with a record-setting performance.
Slides it again. Bedard clocks right in.
It was a fairy tale ending for a historic night. 17-year-old Connor Bedard smashed multiple records and scored the winning goal in overtime.
I've gone to the games and I've just seen him and he's been unreal. And we just think he's the next coming of Jesus.
I think he's very slick and he's also very humble about it. I think he really appreciates all the support.
In this game against Slovakia, he broke multiple records, including one held by Hall of Famer Eric Lindros.
Breaking in front, they score! Lindros!
For 30 years, Lindros has held the record of all-time Canadian points at the World Juniors. Now, that honor belongs to Bedard. Lindros says he's happy to pass the torch. In a tweet before the game, he wrote, "Happy New Year. Don't just break the record, Connor Bedard. Smash it. Win the tournament. Go Canada." Bedard broke two other records, too. He's now the all-time goal leader, and he now holds the record for most points scored in a single tournament.
He's doing things at 17 that these players did at older ages. They were doing it at 18. So it's phenomenal from that perspective, just to kind of watch history in the making.
The budding superstar is projected to be the first pick in next year's NHL draft. Vancouver-born, he plays for the Regina Pats. And though he's only getting started, he's got a lot of fans.
He's generational. He's got pretty much everything you're looking for in a superstar.
Lucky, I guess, that it's happening at the same time as I'm being able to watch, and I'll remember it for a long time.
And Connor Bedard could break more records in this tournament yet. Today, Team Canada players are on the ice practicing for tomorrow's game against Team USA. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Halifax.
A soccer legend was laid to rest today in Brazil. Thousands of people lined the streets of Santos paying tribute to Pelé. He died last week after a battle with colon cancer. But as Susanna De Silva reports, Pelé's impact on the sport will live on.
One last samba for their hero. We're not just saying goodbye to our king, we're saying goodbye to a genius, a legend of the Brazilian people, this man says. Final tributes inside the stadium where Pelé spent most of his illustrious career with the Santos team, before the soccer legend's family arrived to say their final goodbyes, and before Pelé's journey to the cemetery began. For 3 hours, his body made its way through the streets, passing his mother's home, family members looking on, with thousands lined up to see him for what he meant to soccer, to young Brazilians and the nation. Pelé was an inspiration for those who play soccer. He inspired me a lot, says this 11-year-old.
He supported a hospital in our city called Hospital Pequeno Príncipe. He donated a lot of money to research, and that's why we are here today. But he was also a huge human being.
Humble beginnings to the greatest global ambassador for the beautiful game, averaging almost a goal a game over 3 decades, and a feat no one else has ever achieved, 3 World Cups.
The Canadian team work hard.
And an ability to promote the game like no one before, finishing his career in North America.
Just very friendly, big smile on his face all the time. Would have been the 74.
Bob Lenarduzzi played him a handful of times as a Vancouver Whitecap and with Team Canada.
Helped to kickstart our sport, and I think there is a connection between what's going on in MLS and the growth of it, and his arrival here in 1975.
He was laid to rest in the world's highest cemetery near the stadium. It's hard, but it's been an honor and a source of pride. Thank you. Now he will rest, Pelé's son said after the ceremony, knowing his father's legacy will live on. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
The scene from Cincinnati last night that has sent shockwaves through the world of sports. NFL player Damar Hamlin suddenly collapsing on the field after colliding with an opposing player. I'll tell you what happened next.
2 months ago on Saturday Report, we told you about an unusual referendum in Victoria, a referendum on sewage. In a non-binding vote, Victoria residents voted not to treat their sewage, and that means the city's raw, untreated waste is still being dumped directly into the Strait of Juan de Fuca. The practice angers some people in nearby Washington state, and now they're fighting back, hitting Victoria right in the pocketbook. Here's our environment specialist, Eve Savory.
The salmon, the prawns, the scallops sizzling on the grill are local. Just one of the reasons tourism is worth $750 million to Victoria. It's a value that makes the region vulnerable to boycott.
The non-binding referendum has produced a media backlash. There's just no question about that, targeting Victoria's tourism industry.
Victoria does not treat its sewage. Large particles are screened out and the rest piped out to the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Scientists say that there, cold waters and fast currents act as a natural treatment plant. Last November, a referendum asked residents, would they shell out for sewage treatment? They said no.
Very dumb, very stupid, real stupid.
Stupid because Victoria shares the waters of the strait with Washington state. That's also where lots of Victoria's tourists come from. And an informal boycott is gathering momentum. 3 major conventions from the state have canceled.
Well, the goal really is to have some kind of economic pressure against Victoria. We feel that they made an economic decision, so we're making an economic response to them.
A lot of the business that's been lost has been convention business and that sort of thing. So really we're looking at, I think you could look at quite a bit of a drop in occupancies.
It's not just hotels. 70% of the Irish linen shop's business comes from tourists.
But in the winter times, when most of the conventions come over due to our mild weather, and it's greatly affected business.
So far, it's said Victoria has only lost about $500,000 worth of business. But the referendum was only a couple of months ago, and word of the boycott has just begun to spread. At this meeting this week, Victoria Region promised secondary treatment within 25 years.
My response on behalf of our organization would be, we'll see you in 25 years.
But the region says it will fight the boycott. It says if they don't, it could spread to the whole province and even harm the rest of Canada. Eve Savory, CBC News, Victoria.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
It was a frightening scene during last night's NFL matchup between Buffalo and Cincinnati. Bills player Damar Hamlin suffered cardiac arrest and collapsed on the field early in the game. As Lisa Shing reports, the 24-year-old is now listed in critical condition in hospital.
Here's Higgins wide open to midfield and lowers the shoulder for 13.
A seemingly routine tackle ending a game in a way no one expected.
He got up, took a couple of steps, and then just fell to the ground.
Buffalo Bills defensive back Damar Hamlin collapsed during the NFL's Monday night game. The Bills say he suffered a cardiac arrest just after making a tackle. He was taken to a Cincinnati hospital where he was in critical condition.
I'd never seen it in football. I've never seen that.
Neither had fans at the game. Players, coaches visibly distressed. A rare sight in a game that's long been criticized for being too violent. This longtime Bills fan had just one thought.
Football didn't matter. The game didn't matter. What the Buffalo Bills are doing right now, as a season didn't matter. All that mattered was, the health of Damar Hamlin.
His family released a statement today saying it's deeply moved by the prayers, kind words, and donations from fans around the country, thanking the Bills and Bengals and asking fans to please keep Damar in your prayers.
It was awful to see.
As Hamlin received CPR on the field, this doctor says the minutes following a cardiac arrest are critical.
And the quality of that CPR, the rapidity by which you are able to activate services are key. But, you know, I'm hopeful because, again, that first step is getting the heart rhythm back to its normal rhythm.
The pads go on in certain positions.
Every team needs an emergency plan, according to this athletic therapist, who trains his team to respond to incidents on the field.
They would have a well-practiced emergency action plan. They would have an AED readily available. Everyone would know their role prior to an incident like this happening.
In a league where games are usually never postponed due to injury, the NFL says there's no decision on when or if the rest of the game will be played. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
The U.S. House of Representatives has adjourned for the day after 3 rounds of voting failed to determine the next Speaker of the House. Republican nominee Kevin McCarthy has not been able to muster the support needed to win.
The House stands adjourned until noon tomorrow.
McCarthy received just 202 votes in the 3rd round, 1 less than in the first 2, and even less than Democrat Hakeem Jeffries received in the Republican-controlled House. McCarthy fell short of the 218 votes needed. Hardliners in his own party are determined to keep him from winning. Well, the death of a young man detained at a Montreal jail is the subject of a provincial police and coroner's investigation. Sources tell Radio-Canada that the 21-year-old was wearing a spit hood. That's a restraining device that's placed over a detainee's head to prevent biting or spitting. Correctional officers pepper sprayed him before he died of his injuries. But as Sarah Levitt reports, he should have been released the day before the incident.
Watch me stomping with my feet. Watch me stomping, stomping, stomping.
21-year-old Nikios Dondre Spring was just getting his rap career started. Friends remember his warmth and kindness.
Nikios is a gentle giant. He's physically this big teddy bear and just very loving and caring.
But a tragic chain of events began that would claim Spring's life. Arrested on December 20th for allegedly assaulting a police officer, officials say he should have been out on bail, but he was never released. During an alleged altercation with correctional officers, he was hooded with a spit mask and pepper sprayed. He lost consciousness and died in hospital on Christmas Day.
It's tragic.
Hennessy knew Spring since he was 13 and active with a local community group. Now Spring's family is struggling.
And you hear all these possibilities of what happened, which leaves a lot of questions. These things, when they go this far and this deep, they can't be undone.
The Public Security Ministry suspended an officer and a prison manager. Provincial police are looking into potential criminal misconduct. The coroner is looking into cause of death, in addition to other investigations. Nobody involved in those investigations, including the prison, would comment.
If you know the history of the spit mask, then you know what it does to people of our color.
Get on the ground.
Recently, police use of spit masks in the U.S. came under scrutiny after a death in 2020 in New York.
In Quebec, unfortunately, there's not a specific procedure, and every police force or every agency or has their own way of using it.
In its most recent annual report, the province's ombudsman called out detention centers in the use of pepper spray. The mandatory steps on the employment of inflammatory agents are not always respected. On Friday, friends and family gathered to remember Spring, demanding justice for a life cut short. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Some of Canada's top corporate executives are so highly paid, they now receive well over 200 times more than the typical worker. That's in a new report released today by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, covering the 100 best paid CEOs in this country. As Nisha Patel reports, they've already collected more than the average worker will earn this entire year.
Many Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck, but it's a different reality for some of the country's highest paid CEOs.
obviously there's some disparity.
It's a really huge gap.
New numbers show CEOs received record high compensation in 2021. The top 100 executives raked in an average $14.3 million. That's 243 times what the average worker earned. The gap has ballooned since 2009, when it was about 155 times more.
When you hit all-time high corporate profits due to inflation, you're also going to hit all-time high executive compensation and CEO pay.
This economist says while CEO pay has soared, many average workers haven't seen their wages rise. It's the growing gap that concerns him.
It really raises the fundamental question of who benefits from economic growth. Is it all Canadians, or is it really just the folks at the very top?
So who are some of the best paid CEOs in Canada? The head of CP Rail earned nearly $27 million. Shopify's chief made more than $25 million. And the top boss at TELUS brought home a paycheck of nearly $20 million. While TELUS workers have been trying to negotiate a new contract for months.
When somebody out there, anybody out there, is making money hand over fist, and those that make them their wealth are left out of the picture completely. That's the problem.
Some experts argue top compensation is necessary to attract top talent. And while CEOs get big rewards, they also take on big risks.
The salaries are very high, and the expectations are very high, and the moment they don't meet those expectations, they're cut.
The report suggests Canada should look at policy proposals like a wealth tax to tackle the income inequality that has been growing by the year. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Up next, a closer look at an issue affecting millions of Canadian women, why menopause is having a moment, and the call for more conversations.
They've built this entire thing for you,
This is a disaster.
Holy cow.
Hey guys, today we'll be making your very own DIY mini ice hockey rink, which is great if you have a very athletic team of mice. Here's what you'll need. Some water, make sure it's wet. It's wet. Some paper, pipe cleaners, an aluminum foil container, some thin red tape, blue circles, sticker things, and some scissors for cutting. And who better to be forced to help us than the host of CBC Sports and the Ron MacLean of Canada, Mr. Scott Russell.
Actually, Ron MacLean is from Canada, but I'm really happy to be here. You ready to drop the puck on this one?
Let's get started. First, take your paper, which will act as your hockey ring.
Rink.
Sure. And fold it at the crease and goal lines. Scott, next, take your thin red tape and you can put it on the center and goal lines. Pull it like you mean it. We're 42 long. And now you can take your sticker, cut it in half, and you can stick them on the creases.
No, you got the wrong crease. Listen, get away from me.
Next, for the face-off, take big blue sticker and put it in the center. So next, take your hockey ring and put it in the pan and pour your water in, to your desired level of ice thickness. How thick do you like your ice, Scott?
I like it thick.
You can put your ice rink in the fridge for a couple hours, or if it's cold enough outside, you can put it out there, Scott.
Whew.
Oh, my, it's brisk.
What do you want to do? Do you want to make the nets now?
Ooh, someone's read his script.
You want to talk about the Olympics at all? You like the Olympics?
Yeah.
Okay. You know that women play hockey at the Olympics, right?
Really?
Yeah, Marie-Philippe Poulin scored a couple of goals. They beat the United States in Sochi in 2014.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And there you have it. Your very own DIY mini ice hockey rink. You can use a black button for the puck, and the only thing left to do is play. Good game.
You are a beauty.
We'll return to men's lawn curling from Pyongyang after this.
Pyeongchang.
God bless you.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
A Kamloops pilot had a rare surprise after he noticed a small bobcat lurking around his property. Take a look.
Are you after my mice?
It started when he noticed small footprints near his airplane hangar. At first, he thought it was a domestic cat, but he soon realized he was tailing a bobcat. As you do, he whipped out his phone and filmed the animal as it took a tour of his property before leaving through a small gap in the fence, leaving just as quietly as he came. What a cutie. That was my next comment, is that backyard looks like a great spot for a couple of bobcats to be lurking around.
Yeah, cute when you're looking at them, not in person. I would be terrified to see those two glowing eyes behind me. So Anita, you better tell me if I have to turn around suddenly. I've never seen a bobcat back here. There were rumblings in Lynn Valley that there was one last year. I've seen a bear back here. I've seen coyotes, but...
and you typically have a little dog back there?
Yes,
and
a giant Rodney is often confused for a large animal. But yeah, hopefully he'd do some barking to scare off a bobcat. That would be pretty intimidating to see, but you got to let me know if anything creeps up behind me. Let me take you through the forecast and the clearing skies tomorrow. This is the forecast model. Mainly dry through most of the day, but increasing clouds through tomorrow evening. So you don't get much of a sunny break. Expect that sun through the mid-morning towards the early afternoon, but then you'll look for those increasing clouds. Kind of my favorite day when you get to see a frontal system move in. So you look for those high cirrus, thickening up to the puffy cirrostratus, and then eventually the stratus, and then the rain tomorrow night into Thursday. It'll start off as showers for Thursday, but Friday, this system could pack a little bit of a punch. I'm looking at some potentially strong winds and steadier rain to end off the week. So we'll hone in on that tomorrow. As far as rainfall totals go, through to Friday overnight, the whites there on the island, that's the 100 millimeter bullseye. So we could be looking at some significant amounts. Yellows and reds on the mainland, that's sort of 60 to 80 millimeters. Some of that will be, though, falling as snow. That's just straight water accumulation. Tomorrow, though, enjoy that break right across the interior. -4 for Prince George. See a few flurries out there. Flurries falling right now in the Okanagan and Shuswap and Cranbrook, but clearing as we head into the day. And Prince Rupert, fairly gusty tomorrow morning, 70 kilometers per hour. Look for a warm-up across the south coast as we do get that Thursday system, double digits. Warm for Friday and Saturday. That's a couple degrees above our seasonal. Bit of uncertainty about the weekend forecast. Anita, I do think we'll see some sun on Saturday, but not sure how much yet. So plan for a bit of everything, and hopefully we'll get more on the sun end.
Okay, will do. Thanks, Jo.
You're welcome.
Well, right now, millions of Canadians are going through the same big thing. It's something disruptive, but still many are just whispering about it. That thing is menopause. And before you think, okay, that's not something I need to worry about, well, Johanna Wagstaffe is explaining to us why we really do need to worry about it.
Menopause can suck, but it doesn't have to. And no, this is not a story just for women of a certain age, because every female, if she lives long enough, will experience it. Millions of Canadian women are in it right now and will be for years. And yet, the subject is still so often taboo, and many suffer in silence. But we noticed a growing movement online and on the ground determined to empower women. Unlike this comedy show we found here tonight, it starts by dragging menopause out of the shadows and into the spotlight. Menopause. It's hot, it's flashy, and it's definitely having a moment. Aaron Keeney is a realtor by day, occasional comic by night. Tonight's gig is a campy act of hormonal solidarity for the millions of Canadian women out there who may be sweating right now, too.
Oh my God.
started sweating at 4 a.m. this morning.
I'm just kind of telling my story, and why should we be ashamed? Why is it such a secret and such a mystery? Right?
So, is anybody else hot in here?
Keeney's hot flashes, the fact she keeps having them, is a big part of her act. Because while menopause marks the day a woman hasn't had a period for 12 months, the transition before and after can last for years. And don't get Keeney started on the belly fat.
Your hormones are slowing down, and your body is making pillows for when you fall down.
Jokes aside, menopause is no laughing matter. This comedy show is part of a growing movement of women demanding to be heard and treated for a long list of symptoms many never saw coming.
The rage, it's real.
Vaginal dryness, irritability, insomnia, moodiness, chronic headaches, lack of focus.
Definitely a feeling of like insecurity as a woman.
A desire for sex, but oh man, it's not the same as it was. Absolutely, it's waking, and I was like, what is happening?
Samantha Montpetit-Huyn is a personal trainer who works virtually. When she started feeling the change herself, she started to tailor her workouts to menopausal women. The conversation that came with it opened the floodgates. When you shifted your focus to menopause, what kind of reaction did you get?
Oh, everybody was like, thank God, where have you been?
Montpetit-Huyn is tapping into an enormous and exhausted market.
If we think the majority of women are going through some stage of perimenopause and menopause by, let's say, mid-40s to mid-50s generally, they're managing their career and kids and a home and all of these things. A lot of women say to me, I feel like I'm going crazy. If anything, my business went through the roof because I was talking to these women and listening to them and giving them some support.
She's not the only one.
I'm 55 and I am a menopause chick.
The menopause community is exploding, especially online.
All of these things that can kind of creep in insidiously in perimenopause.
There are midlife influencers.
They've earned their stripes.
Celebrity wellness lines.
For today's Menopause Minute, I'm going to talk about how we diagnose.
And doctors informing and advocating for women's health.
There's often a lot of confusion about it.
There are some dubious claims out there too, promising quick fixes. But the flood of menopause solutions, good and bad, experts say, stems from a glaring lack of research and knowledge in the medical community.
How to advocate for yourself at your healthcare provider's office.
A blind spot rooted in the notion menopause is something women just have to endure.
I think what I find the hardest is that women feel that they should just suck it up. That every woman needs to bear this like a burden. And to me, that's just complete bunk. Why are we so behind on this area? It makes no sense. That's right.
Trish Barbato and Janet Coe co-founded the Menopause Foundation of Canada last year.
We have 10 million women in our country over the age of 40. We're 1/4 of the population, and we make up 1/4 of the workforce. And yet our needs related to menopause have largely been ignored. And that's not acceptable.
The foundation recently released a landmark study. It found women were often blindsided by menopause and the sheer number of symptoms that can come with it.
Most women are aware of hot flashes, period changes, but there's 30+ symptoms of menopause. Things like heart palpitations, urinary tract infection, pain during intercourse, there's low mood, there's anxiety. So there's a whole host of symptoms that if you don't understand that that's part of perimenopause and menopause, you're not able to connect the dots, and you're actually not able to manage your own health.
But even for women who did turn to their family doctors for help, the report found many felt undertreated, their symptoms trivialized.
You have to be really tenacious. You have to believe that you deserve to feel better, and that it's not going to pass tomorrow, and that you have to put the energy to go back to your physician, to ask for what you need. At this point, you need to take a lead because the health system is not going to completely support you.
Dr. Wendy Wolfman has spent her career advocating for women's health. She was one of the first in the country to create a menopause clinic at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto more than 2 decades ago.
How do you feel about the lack of access to care for women?
That's why I'm so passionate about this, and I spent the last 22 years of my life trying to fight that attitude, and it's been such an uphill battle.
Even after all this time, there are few experts like her in Canada.
The wait list to see a wolfman is up to 2 years.
2 years. I mean, if an average woman is calling your clinic to try to get some help,
yes,
that's a long time.
Absolutely. So we're trying to improve our numbers. I can't possibly see everybody, but I'm trying to educate as many people as I can, and we're training as many fellows as we can. And I think the idea of what we need to train physicians on has to change. Not every woman gets pregnant, but every woman who lives long enough will become menopausal. We're going to give you a prescription.
That lack of knowledge, Wolfman says, is affecting treatment too. The most effective is hormone therapy, but family doctors can be hesitant to prescribe it, and women are even warned against it, despite updated guidelines, Wolfman says, that point to it being a safe and effective option for many women.
I see these women whose lives are tremendously disrupted, and they say, you know, I'm not going on hormone therapy, I'm going to tough it out. They can't sleep, they can't function at work, and the average time that we know that symptoms last is 7 to 10 years. Years, not months. And if there is therapy that can improve your quality of life, and that doesn't have significant impact on your eventual health, then why wouldn't you seek that help?
So what advice would you give to women out there then, when they want help and they're not necessarily getting it from their GP?
I think that women need to advocate for themselves. And I think if we're not getting the health care we need to be politically active and speak up.
A lot of exciting things happening tonight, and I want to thank you so much for coming.
And more women are speaking up and banding together. In a lingerie factory, Montpetit Huyn launched her first hot flashes and high heels event in Toronto a couple of months ago.
I talk all day, every day about menopause.
It was a gathering of menopause champions.
How to undo mansplaining of menopause.
All determined to empower women and rebrand menopause.
I really feel that menopause is an opportunity for women to reconnect and understand that this second stage of life can be their most powerful. They can feel independent and strong and sexy.
Oh my God, that feels so good.
Backstage, Keeney's act is done. She's finally cooling off, but says the menopause movement is just heating up.
If you're open and you have the dialogue, then we can all support each other.
And now more than ever, that support is openly out there.
It's the definition of precious cargo. After the break, we'll tell you how some BC hockey fans were reunited with this prized stick.
Sweetgrass is lit in the morning ceremony to honor 7th-generation teachings that will be. Doula training includes making sure that the mother is supported way before the birth. Emotional strength, spiritual and cultural strength. Yeah. And getting the community ready to accept this baby by ensuring that there'll be a sacred fire lit in the community for this newest arrival. Which means the newest member of St. Mary's is here. It's really important that we nurture our women who are bringing these amazing babies into our communities. Put one inside there, okay? Put one in there, okay? Placental burial, it has to do with honoring our ancestors. You know, it's our ancestors, that DNA that surrounds this beautiful baby in the mother's womb. This baby is going to belong to the whole community. You know, that we're all going to take care of this baby together as a community. And so this eases the pressure on the mother and the father. You're not alone in raising this child. This child, you know, is a community member, and therefore all of us are going to be responsible for protecting this child. When we do the placental burial, we acknowledge our responsibility in honoring the ancestral our ancestors. It's quite moving to know that we're maintaining our cultural rights by doing these ceremonies and not just making it a hospital visit. These women in our community are doing an amazing job in the reclamation of our cultural foundation, which every child needs. The ones who are expecting safe homes in their wombs, their first homes. So this is for all the women that struggle, and it's our responsibility to help them have healthy first homes for all our babies coming.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Enjoy groundbreaking contemporary works of theatre, dance, music, and multimedia at the annual Push International Performing Arts Festival, January 19th to February 5th. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
And now a happy update on the missing hockey stick that 2 boys lost during the airport chaos over the holidays.
We heard from our parents, I think 2 days ago, that like the stick was around Abbotsford, but it hadn't actually been like with us or anything. And then I think it may have been yesterday or 2 days ago that we actually heard that our grandparents had gone there and picked up the stick, and the stick was in like our hands basically.
Flair Airlines contacted the family to let them know the stick was found and was being sent to Abbotsford. Their grandparents, as you just heard, went to go pick it up, and it will be returned to the boys later this week. Hopefully the reunification process for everyone else with lost luggage happens soon, but this really is a good ending for the boys. And speaking of endings, that is it for our show tonight. Thank you for being with us on CBC Vancouver News, and we'll see you tomorrow.